Greetings, parasite ecologists. We're joined today by a very special guest. This is my mentor and colleague, Armand Kuris. Armand is a professor of ecology at the University of California, Santa Barbara. And he's going to be joining us for a couple of videos in the series, including this one. Armand, thank you so much for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Chelsea. Happy to contribute with this exercise.
Excellent. And I'll let Armand take it away.
Greetings, parasite ecologists. Nature is generally seen as a continuum. Environments vary across a range of temperatures, habitats blend into each other, animals vary continuously in size all the way from a little shrew to a huge whale. In contrast, regarding infectious consumer strategies, types of parasites, evolution has sharply constrained how parasites can feed on their hosts. There are 4 such parasitic strategies. These are typical parasites, trophically transmitted parasites, parasitoids, and parasitic castrators. There are no parasites that are halfway between being, say, a typical parasite and a trophically transmitted parasite. They adhere to just one of these 4 strategies. From an evolutionary standpoint, if it means that once a strategy has evolved, it's very difficult for natural selection to evolve to another strategy. You've already heard about how many times parasitism has evolved. It's true that there are many independent evolutionary origins of parasitism, but once a parasite evolves, it's very difficult for it to then evolve to become a different kind of parasite. There's a framework to help us organize the different kinds of parasites. We'll go through each dichotomous question step by step and talk about each of the 4 parasitic strategies. These distinctive consumer strategies can be distinguished by asking just 3 dichotomous questions that only have 2 possible answers. First, let's be sure we're talking about parasites. That is, any organism in an intimate and durable relationship with a host where that host suffers a fitness cost. Remember, we are thinking about a single infecting parasite in a particular host in each life cycle stage of that parasite. For the first dichotomy, how many resource organisms are attacked by that consumer? If more than one, then the consumer is a predator. If one and only one resource individual, then the consumer is some sort of parasite. For example, a shark eats more than one fish during its life and is therefore a predator. But what about a mosquito? A female mosquito feeds several times on several hosts during her adulthood. But unlike the shark, she doesn't kill any of the organisms she feeds on. That's where we use the fitness criterion to distinguish a predator. A predator reduces their prey's fitness to 0 by killing and eating it, the way a shark kills and eats a prey fish. A micropredator reduces the prey's fitness, but not all the way to 0, because it eats only a tiny part of that prey, the way that a mosquito takes a blood meal. That means that mosquitoes are not parasites, but micropredators, because they move from one host to the next, affecting many host individuals, but not remaining attached to any one of them. Lots of other insects use this strategy also. Kissing bugs, black flies, horse flies, and lots more biting insects. Even other organisms outside the arthropoda can adopt this strategy. For example, leeches, which move from one fish host to the next, taking a blood meal. So, this criterion, whether there is one or more than one host or prey item, helps us distinguish the predators and the micropredators on the one hand from the parasites on the other. Let's now set the predators and micropredators aside and focus on the parasites. The second dichotomy asks, can a host survive a successful parasite? Does the parasite need the host to die in order for its life cycle to advance? This separates the typical parasites and parasitic castrators on the one hand from the trophically transmitted parasites and the parasitoids on the other. Parasitoids must consume and kill their hosts to continue their life cycle. A great example is the giant ichneumon wasp in the genus Megarissa. Colloquially, these are known as stump stabbers. These wasps can sense their hosts, the larvae of other insects, under the bark of trees. They then use their giant ovipositor to drill through the bark, pierce their host body wall, and then insert their larvae inside. The larvae eat the host from the inside out, leaving behind an empty husk. The parasitoid, therefore, must fully consume and kill the host in order for its life cycle to advance. There are many insect parasitoids, but the strategy is also found in other branches of the tree of life. Consider the ficampiids, flatworms that infect marine shrimp, eat them from the inside out, and then emerge to move on to their next life stage. For trophically transmitted parasites, the host infected by a trophically transmitted parasite must be consumed by a predator host that is suitable for the parasite to complete its development. This outcome is a disaster for a typical parasite. They would be killed and digested by the predator, but the trophically transmitted parasites use this as an opportunity to infect the predator. Consider any of the foodborne parasites for which you might be familiar, like trichinosis, a disease caused by a nematode parasite which is transmitted to people in undercooked pork. Here are some Trichinella spiralis larvae in the muscle of a pig. This is a trophically transmitted parasite. In order for it to get into you, it needs for its pig host to die and then be eaten by you. We will come across the strategy of trophic transmission many times as we scan across the parasite tree of life in future videos. That brings us to the third and final dichotomy. The third dichotomy simply asks if the host's fitness is reduced entirely to zero, or does the host hold on to at least some of its fitness? All parasites reduce host fitness. This dichotomy asks, does it do it a little bit, or does it do it all the way? Answering this simple question separates the typical parasites and the trophically transmitted parasites on the one hand from the parasitic castrators and the parasitoids on the other. Typical parasites need their host to continue living, and they do not reduce their host fitness to zero. Consider this isopod parasite, Analocra caudata. It is attached to the cheek of a grouper, where it rasps away at the grouper's skin and mucus and drinks some of its blood. If the grouper dies, the typical parasite dies also, and it reduces host fitness, but not to zero. This is a typical parasite. Even the trophically transmitted parasites allow the host some fitness. This pig could have had pig babies before it got eaten. Contrast that with the parasitic castrators and the parasitoids. We've already heard about how parasitoids kill their host, eating them from the inside out, leaving them as empty shells, and therefore reducing their fitness to zero. But what about parasitic castrators? This is a diabolical parasitic strategy. Parasitic castrators die when their host dies, so they need their host to continue living. But that doesn't mean that the host gets to retain its fitness, because, as their name suggests, parasitic castrators castrate their hosts. They make it impossible for hosts to reproduce, and without reproduction, fitness is reduced to zero. This usually happens because parasitic castrators divert hosts' reproductive energy and use all that energy to make their own babies. You'll see a great example of this when you get to the trematode section. Here is a snail that is close to my heart, Cerathidia californica, the California horned snail. In healthy snails, the tissues that are up in the spire of the shell are brown, green, or orange, bright colors. These tissues are the digestive gland and the gonads of the snail. But in snails that are infected with trematode parasites, the parasites fully take over these tissues, commandeering them for their own reproduction. The snail never again produces snail babies. It lives a long life, crawling around the mudflats, eating diatoms, and all the while it is a parasite factory. It looks like a snail, it acts like a snail, but it has been castrated. Its fitness is reduced to zero. The parasitic castrators continue to reproduce as long as the infected snail lives on. So now we can see how the three dichotomies give us the various kinds of parasites and predators. Individual parasites and individual predators have very different sizes compared to their individual hosts. Seen here are the relative sizes in mass of predators compared to prey, and of typical parasites and trophically transmitted parasites compared to their host sizes. This graph scans about 20 orders of magnitude. But there's a gap. Do any consumers fill that gap? The answer is yes. It's parasitoids and parasitic castrators. They are usually from about 1% to almost the same size as are their hosts. Think about why this might be. Why are parasitic castrators and parasitoids able to be so much bigger relative to their hosts than other kinds of parasites and also micropredators? One more wrinkle for you. A given parasite can use different strategies in different life cycle stages. It is possible for a parasite to be a castrator as a first-stage larva, a trophically transmitted parasite in its second larval stage, and a typical parasite as an adult stage. In fact, this is often the rule among the trematodes, as you'll see when you get to the trematode video. So you'll need to figure out, for each parasite life cycle stage, which of the parasite strategies is being used. As you move through the next videos, remember to refer back to this matrix. It will help you better understand the organisms we discuss. If you can figure out whether they are a typical parasite, a trophically transmitted parasite, parasitic castrator, a parasitoid, or not a parasite at all. Thank you for letting me drop into your video series. Enjoy your time in the world of parasites, and I'll see you later on in the series.